Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. In this video, I am going to introduce myself to you, and I'm going to do so answering the same questions you'll answer in the Getting to Know Each Other discussion forum. So this way, you get to know a little bit about me, and you also get a better understanding of what I mean by the questions that I'm posing to you. So these are the questions I'm going to ask you. What is your name? What are your pronouns? What is your field of study? Where are you in your higher education journey? Do you like to read and or write? What are you currently reading, writing, listening to, and or watching? And what are 3 interesting facts about you? So my name is Caitlin McCann, and I am your English 002 instructor. I'm perfectly fine with you calling me Caitlin. If you don't feel comfortable calling me Caitlin, you can call me Miss McCann, but I do prefer to be called Caitlin. But I'm totally fine with you just doing what you feel the most comfortable with. This screenshot I have here of my face, name, and contact information can also be found on our Moodle page. And in our reviewing the syllabus video, I go in more details about how to contact me, but I just want to, since we're here, I'll say that my email address is camccann@gtcc.edu, and email is the best way to get into contact with me. The phone number and extension below my email address, that's actually the phone number and extension for the English department office. I do not have an office on campus, and thus I don't have a phone. So if you want to call me, you can call the English department, and the administrative assistant and the English department will then email me to let me know that you called. So you might as well just email me because with that phone number, you will not be able to actually get into contact with me. Like, I will not be the person answering that phone. Any meetings that you want to have, like face-to-face meetings, will be held over Microsoft Teams or Zoom. I prefer using Zoom, but officially GTCC uses Microsoft Teams. I'm not holding any meetings in person because I don't have an office on campus. They are shared offices, and I think it's just a little bit safer, since we're still in the midst of a pandemic, to just meet virtually, since I don't have like my own space where I can control like who comes in and who comes out and the cleanliness of it. If you want to meet with me, those meetings have to be made, those meetings are made by appointment. And I talk about this in the syllabus, but any requests to meet with me must be made 48 hours in advance. So I use she, her, hers pronouns. And if you don't know, pronouns are words we use in place of other words when we are talking about people. So, for example, instead of saying Caitlin went grocery shopping and Caitlin went to the park, we could say Caitlin went grocery shopping and she went to the park. And then also when we're trying to talk indirectly about someone, like, oh, she did, like that person over there, or her over there, or she did this, he did that. Knowing someone's pronouns is extremely important because we cannot assume we know a person's pronouns just by looking at them. And because it is imperative that we respectfully talk to and about each other by using correct pronouns. Everyone uses pronouns. You is a pronoun, I is a pronoun, she, her, hers, he, him, his, they, them, theirs. Everyone uses pronouns. A lot of people who push back against knowing someone's pronouns tend to say that they don't use pronouns, or they're just who they are, but everyone has a pronoun. you have a way that you want people to talk about you and to you and refer to you. So, and those are just like the she, her, he, him, they, them. That's just like a small sampling of the pronouns that people use. So I want to just make sure, like in the forum, that you provide us with your pronouns so that we know how to talk to you, with you, in reference to you, okay? It's all about respect. So the next question is, what is your field of study? And when I ask you this question, I want you to tell me what your major is or what you're studying, or what you hope to be or become with your degree. So I just started my first semester as a candidate in East Carolina University's Master's in Library and Information Science program. I mean, I'm starting this semester. Like, my first day of class is your first day of class. And I'm really excited about it. Usually when I answer this question in past semesters, I'm like, I'm done with school, but here are the degrees that I have. But now I get to be a student alongside of y'all, and I'm really excited about that. But I also have a bachelor's degree in English. I have a master's of fine arts in creative writing with a focus in poetry. And I also have a master's degree in women's and gender studies. So the next question is, where are you in your higher education journey? So higher education, that's like beyond high school, like community college, a certificate program, university work, stuff like that. And so what I want you to tell me is, like, are you a freshman, a sophomore? Is this your first year, second year? If it's your first year, how many years are like in between when you graduated from high school and college? Because some folks go straight from high school to college. Some folks take a few years off in between. Some folks start college and then take a break and then return. That's what I love about community college, is we're all in different places in our higher education journey. Like, we're in classes with 18-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 30-year-olds and 60, like it's all over the place. And I just think it's really cool, because I think the best way to learn is from each other. And that's why I love teaching at a community college, because it's, because I also teach at UNCG, and the folks at UNCG are like, it's more, I graduated from high school and I went immediately into college, and it's more, quote, typical of what society expects us to do. And though there is still a diverse student population there, but it's more, quote, typical at UNCG. So I really like community college, because there is no one right way to live a life. And there's certainly no one right way to do education or be a student, or, you're not, and I think that's like kind of what stresses us out about school, is that, society says we go from college or from high school straight into college, and that we need to do college all the way through in 2 years if we're at a community college, or 4 years if we're at a university. But that's not the case for everyone. And I think that expectation society imposes upon us creates a lot of unnecessary stress, and perhaps like it can make you feel bad about yourself. So yeah. Anyways, tangent. Where am I in my higher education journey? So, like I said in the previous slide, I'm just starting my first semester at ECU as a library and information science master's student. And that basically means I want to be a librarian. Specifically, I want to be an academic librarian so that I can still work at either a community college or a university and still be in that system of academia, because I really like working with students. I really like working with students in higher education, I should say. Nothing against those like in high school, middle school, elementary school. I just like higher education a lot. Like this is where I'm meant to be, is higher education. So that's what I'm doing there. So let's see. But before, again, in previous semesters, before I decided to go back to school, I didn't really have an answer to this question, so I just told people about where I was in my teaching journey. So I'll go ahead and give you that information as well, because I think it's good to know how long someone has been teaching. So I started as a teaching assistant in the Department of Media Studies at UNCG in fall 2016. So a teaching assistant is a graduate student who either teaches their own class or assists a tenured professor with their class. So I was the kind of teaching assistant who did a little bit of both. So during my fall semesters of this 2-year master's program I was in, I was more of an assistant. But during those spring semesters, I taught my own class all by myself. But more formally, like, I started my teaching career as a lecturer in the Department of Media Studies at UNCG in fall 2018. And I teach classes on media writing at UNCG. I started teaching as an adjunct instructor in the Department of English at GTCC in fall 2018. And I teach both English 111 and English 002 at GTCC. And specifically, I've been teaching English 002 since summer 2019. So I've been teaching this class for a while. And I've been teaching it online since like the pandemic forced a lot of classes to be online in the middle of spring 2020. So the next question, do you like to read and or write? So I want you to answer this question honestly. Most folks don't like to read or write, or maybe they like one and not the other, and that's okay. Because the reason I think it's like okay, but I think it is like an important thing, reading and writing is very important, but it's like okay to admit that you don't like it, because I think the main reason a lot of people don't like to read and or write is because school kind of ruined it for them. And I can empathize with that. I love to read and write. I mean, I have a master's degree in writing poetry. I teach English, so presumably I love to read as well. But I will admit that graduate school complicated my relationships with reading and writing, which I think is very common for a lot of students, regardless of where they are in their education. I'm working hard at healing those relationships, and I think I'm making great progress when it comes to healing my relationship with reading. I'm really still working on my relationship as a writer, like a creative writer. But personally, reading, of the two, reading is like the most important thing in the world to me. Like, if I had to say, like, pick which one was my identity, I would say I'm a reader. Like, I don't know who I am if I'm not a reader. So I've been focusing the most on my relationship with reading. And I do want to say that reading is reading. Like graphic novels, comic books, literary fiction, the classics, horror, fantasy, science fiction, magazines. Reading is reading. Like, there is one type of writing is not better than the other. Like, you can read a graphic novel and learn just as much about the world and improve your critical thinking skills just as much as if you were to read like something by Charles Dickens, okay? Um, so you shouldn't, and I think that was like a really huge thing with me healing my relationship with reading. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you read, what genre you read, as long as you're reading and you're getting something from it and you're having a good time. Reading should be a good time. Okay? And honestly, the same goes for writing. You know, when you're a student, you have to read things you don't want to read and you have to write things you don't want to write. But that's just kind of what you have to do in order to get better at the types of reading and writing you do like to do. So, next, I would like you to answer, what are you currently reading, writing, listening to, and or watching? So, in this PowerPoint, I made this PowerPoint on Saturday, January 1st, and it is currently Thursday, January 6th as I record this. So, when I wrote this PowerPoint, I was reading a book called Blackwater Sister by Zin Cho. And I noted here that I'm hoping to be done with this book by the time classes start, as it's been taking me way longer than usual to make my way through this book. Well, I finished it a couple of days ago, and I'm actually currently reading a book called Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. If you like horror novels, like, I highly recommend him. It's really good. And this book is really interesting because he kind of plays with just the genre of books as a whole and what a book should look like or typically looks like, because Horror Store, it kind of spoofs IKEA's. It's basically like a knockoff IKEA as a haunted house. And the book itself looks like a catalog, like an IKEA catalog. So it's really cool and interesting and super entertaining. And actually, because I have like a Goodreads app where you can track it's like social media for book nerds. It's the only social media I have, though I don't socialize on it. I just keep track of what I read, and I'm exactly 52% through it. So hopefully by the time the first day of class actually begins, I will be done with that book. But I'm having an awesome time, so I'm not trying to rush it. Let's see. At this moment in time, I am not listening to anything. I'm not listening to any specific podcasts or audiobooks or albums, but I am listening to a playlist I put together that's mostly comprised of Taylor Swift, Angel Olsen, Phoebe Bridgers, Metallica, and My Chemical Romance. I also tend to listen to songs on repeat, like the same song on repeat over and over and over again. And one of the song I'm listening to now is Leon Bridges' River. Oh, that song, if you haven't listened to it, it's beautiful. It's so good. And also I just want to say about audiobooks. Audiobooks, that counts as reading. It counts as reading. Whether, if you have issues with focusing as you read, something I recommend doing is listening to the audiobook and following along with a physical copy of the book. But like I said, Grady Hendrix, I read, oh my gosh, it's such a long title and I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's the Southern Book Club's Guide to Vampire Slaying or something like that. I listened to the audiobook. And I didn't follow along with a physical copy. I just listened to it, and it was so good. And the narrator, she was amazing. Audiobooks create like this entirely different experience. Like, I kind of feel like that if I had not listened to the audiobook and instead read the book, I'm not sure I would have liked the book as much as I do. So yeah, audiobooks, that's reading. Ebooks, that's reading. Like, just do you, okay? So next question. I used to be a huge fan of television shows. Like around the time like The Office and 30 Rock and Parks and Rec and like that was like a really good time for network TV. I was obsessed. Like, so much good stuff. Like, this was, I mean, streaming services existed to an extent. Like, I think Netflix was around, but it was really before, like, streaming services. Obsessed with TV. Watched so much stuff. And then I've kind of just stopped watching TV, not because I don't like TV, but I really think it has something to do with the pandemic. Like, I've started new shows and I've just stopped. I've started rewatching old favorites. I've just stopped. So I just haven't been able to commit to starting a new series or fully rewatching a series. Movies, I can sit on my couch and watch 6 hours of television, like binge watch a show. But it's really hard for me to watch like an hour and a half, 2-hour movie and just sit there. Though I have been watching more movies than usual. I think it's just because I don't really have to commit, and that's really vibing with me right now. Like around Halloween, I watched a lot of horror movies. And yeah, so I don't know. I think it's partially pandemic and that I'm just kind of like in a rut in general. So, like, everything has just gotten so repetitive. So, anyways, but I spent my winter break watching various true crime series and docu-series. So, yeah. Not quite healthy. And the true crime genre is a little problematic, but, you know, anyways. But like, a lot of people love it, and yeah. I mean, I'm one of them. So then we have, what are 3 interesting facts about you? So my first interesting fact is that I have ADHD. My second one is I'm a first-generation college student. And my third one is that I have 3 cats. So, and to the, on the right side of the screen, I have this cartoon. See, again, reading, it doesn't have to just be words on the page. Like, it can be a graphic narrative. Graphic meaning there are images. And I really like this image describing untreated ADHD and how it can cause and trap you in depression. Because, like, this depression column, I think that's, like, how a lot of us perceive ourselves as lazy without realizing that maybe we're just depressed or anxious. And so then instead of beating ourselves up for being lazy or being a mess or like, why can this person do it and I can't, you know, whether it's untreated ADHD or not, I think it's like really important to unpack why we do the things we do. So it's like, well, why do I always have a mess? Like, why is there just always a mess? Why am I like procrastinating? Like, I don't understand. Like, procrastination is not laziness. There's a reason you're putting something off, okay? And there's like a subconscious reason there. So I just think it's like really important to just analyze and critique why maybe you do the things that you do. And like, especially if you don't like those things, like the example here of like, oh, I'm always in a mess. Nothing ever changes. Like, why? You know, if a mess works for you, it works for you. For me, it doesn't work. But then sometimes it's just like, how did all those clothes pile up in my bathroom? Like, what is going on here? So, you know, I'm not saying like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm just depressed. It's okay. I can just whatever. But it's not an excuse. It's just like, okay, why do I do the thing that I do? When you can define it, or find the reason why, you're able to find a way around it or to get out of like a situation or a habit that you're not fond of. So, you know, I don't know. Anyways, so, and when it comes to you sharing your 3 interesting facts, just please, don't feel like you have to share things that you don't feel comfortable sharing with a group of people. Like, you can be very open, or you can just keep it pretty, pretty chill, not too deep. It's up to you. And again, these are the questions that you'll be answering. In the video, Navigating Moodle and Where to Begin, I point out where the form is that you're going to answer these questions in. So, and I also posted the responses I have here, I also posted in my, in the forum, so that way you don't have to like toggle between PowerPoint and, or video and forum, what have you. So you can see my responses right there. But yeah, if you aren't sure how to answer a question, you can totally just like zip back and forth. Or just email me and say like, what do you mean by higher education journey? Or like, what do you mean by field of study? Totally fine. Yeah, I know this video was a little bit lengthy, but this is like one of the only chances I get to kind of show you who I am, let you know who's on the other end of like all the feedback you're getting and the lessons you're receiving. So yeah, I just kind of want you to get an idea of who I am. And yeah, anyways, I look forward to reading your own responses. And please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.